Welcome to Building the Business Behind Open Source AI. Continuing our series on scaling AI revenue. In partnership with the team at Omnistrate, we are joined by Matteo Merli. As the CTO of StreamNative and the co-creator of Apache Pulsar, Matteo has architected some of the most resilient distributed systems in existence at places like Yahoo and Splunk. He'll be sharing hard-won lessons on technical and community discipline required to run an open source project into a global infrastructure standard.
Thank you very much for the introduction. My name is Matteo Merli. I'm the co-founder and CEO of StreamNative. I started I'm one of the co-creators of Apache Pulsar, and I'm also very involved as a PMC chair for the project. So I've been involved in open source for the last 20 years. And I'm going to go like a lot of lesson learned and how my views evolved around open source and commercial open source. And since we are talking about AI, it's also how commercial open source has evolved in the age of AI. So, and the tension between what is managed services versus open source. I will first start with saying what StreamNative is. We are a lake stream platform for Pulsar and Kafka. Lakestream, basically, we are data streaming platform that is natively integrated with Lakehouse. We work with Iceberg. We have our own storage engine, which is the Ursa engine, which is kind of like our differentiator. We deploy mostly with Bring Your Own Cloud, and we are open by default. We have all open source APIs. We have open standard for storage. So it's kind of like inside out open platform. And on top of that, we have like all the integrations and both for all like these data streaming source things as well as engine and all inside our governance platform. So how do we started? So we started back in the day in Yahoo. So that's common story. We built this technology to solve the problem at scale in Yahoo. In 2012, that's when the project started. Eventually, it was open source after it was in production and serving most of the use cases in Yahoo. And it was donated to the Apache Foundation. That was a common route. Lots of projects from Yahoo were ending up in Apache Foundation. So after that, we saw that there was opportunity to start a commercial company to support the project and the technology to make it useful evangelize it and make it useful for outside users. So we started Streamio. That was our first commercial attempt for Pulsar. And it got into top level projects, and eventually we sold Streamio to Splunk, and we created a second attempt in StreamNative, and then we have been evolving into the AI era. So that's kind of like the timeline for Pulsar as a technology and StreamNative. The first mistake that I'm talking about is how to focus on community first and product second. Initially, we thought that okay, we want to commercialize this technology. It sounds cool. We want to make it useful for companies to adopt it easily. So we can build a product. And we can build a product, and we had to invest into building this product and commercialize it from day zero. That's what investors also are trying to push you, is that make money, have something to sell. Eventually, with open source is not always the right answer. If you don't have a community, then the open source is useless. Essentially, it's like you can have your source code there, but if there is no community around, that's kind of like dead. Having some foundation behind is important. That's the first step. Be it Apache, be it CNCF, there are multiple foundations, Linux Foundation, and so on. That's kind of like give some kind of imprimatur, some framework around the licensing. You cannot pull the rug and change your license, for example, but also around the project management. Like you cannot just own the project. One company that cannot own the project, which is very important. But essentially, the lesson learned here is that you cannot just commercialize the open source technology as it is. You have to build a community around it. And there is no shortcut. You can just put some marketing budget around it and promote it. Doesn't work. It has to be organically grow. And I mean, you can see that. You can sponsor events. You can go out and talk about the technology and listen to people and build features that people might want to use. This is all like all free work that you do in order to grow that with the community. And then you have early adopters, and you can work with them, and they become contributors. So that's how you grow that community. Once you have that, you can like overcome the first obstacle, which is especially true for data infrastructure. Like this is like technology that people have to trust. It's like a database. That's your data foundation. So if you don't trust that the technology is reliable and it is used by enough people, then you will not adopt it. Even if it sounds cool, even if it sounds like a 10x better than the rest. And the other part is around the community itself. So if you see that, okay, the technology looks good, is deployed at scale in several big companies, but what if tomorrow they change their plans and then there's no one developing this project anymore? So it becomes dead. So the community itself has to be self-sustained, which is the bigger obstacle. So unless you focus on those, you cannot just build the business around the open source. So that's the first thing. So first to build that community can take time, and then you build the product. So once the community is ready, so once you have not just the early adopters, when you have the main wave of adopters, that's when you can build the product and you have a much better idea on what you want to build, and you have the market also primed for that. First lesson around community first and product second. The other part is around where you do the line between what you keep open source and what you want to build as a commercial product. Of course, if we are company, we want to make money. How do we want to make money? There are multiple businesses around open core and so on, but essentially we need to provide some value added that is not in the open source. So there's a tension, like we can build everything into open source, or we can not build everything into open source. I think the first part is that we have to be honest with both the open source community as well as the commercial customers, right? We are putting a lot of work into the open source. We want this to succeed, and we want to make sure that it will always stay open. We are not trying to play gimmicks, like this feature is gated, or like it only works, but if you use more than 10 things, then you have to talk with sales. That doesn't work. Or that it only works for a demo, but then like for any practical production use case, that doesn't really work. So that's not healthy relationship with the open source community, as well as I believe that multiple companies in the past 10 years have been like playing with some different variation of BSL licenses that you can use. This is open source, but you cannot use this if you have a product that is competing with us, which is like you have to talk with a lawyer before you can use this thing, because it's like they're very confusing. I mean, they may have a good intention, but I think that's not the right side. So I believe that if we want this piece of code to be open source, we open source it with Apache license, MIT, whatever license. If we don't, then we keep it closed source. We don't try to play with the kind of like these middle grounds that are very confusing and they're not very useful. Second part is that we are competing with open source as well, right? So we are building open source, we're building a commercial product, and we are competing with between these two lines. So it needs to have a coherent value on what we build as a commercial product. So we can just say, oh, we have this bunch of plugins that are commercial only, and that doesn't really communicate the value to the user. It has to be we have a platform that does multiple things that are not in the open source. So this is what you're buying, not just a checklist of feature that doesn't help the user to understand. The last part is that to make the decision easy for the buyer, you have to make it back to the TCO. So like if you say, I have this feature X, Y, and Z that are gated, how does that help to lower the cost? Like if we can say build something that has meaningful value that can have you like operate the cluster with a lower TCO, that's an easy proposition. So you can still use the open source, and it's free forever. It's maintained. The community is working on that. As well, we have some other implementation that can lower your TCO. So that's an easy way to kind of convince people. Some of the example that that fall into this framework is Ursa Engine. We kind of like rebuild the storage engine for our streaming platform based on object storage. So that is done to reduce all the costs around not having local disks, as well as not having to pay for inter-AZ traffic, which is a dominant factor for data streaming workloads. So this is what we built internally, and that's kind of like a differentiator from open source. So you can lower 90% the infra cost with our proprietary storage engine. Another one is around auto-scaling. So we built very sophisticated auto-scaling for our data streaming platform. Again, that is part of our operator. That's part of our managed services. Again, that's a measure that can reduce the cost a lot. And finally, all this control plane and operational part is also easy to communicate that you don't need a team to understand and to be on call for this, to manage all this part. That's what we do for you. Now we go back to AI and what does that mean for open source. I think there are a lot of interesting, very interesting dynamics, and I think we just been scraping the very minimal part. First one is that it makes technology way cheaper to adopt for everyone. So it's way easier for people to get on board with a new technology. It's way easy to get from zero to I deploy something in production. It also makes for way easier for us maintainer and contributor for open source to keep maintaining these large projects. It makes it easy to make changes, introduce features, especially in large legacy code bases, as well as for people to contribute. Now, there are goods and bads, but I think mostly it's good for all the people involved. What does not change, I think, with the AI part? I think as vendors, we still have to earn the customer. And I think it becomes more and more true. So if it becomes easier for people to get started, we have to make it even more compelling to say that this is our product is very way different from what you get with open source. And the second aspect is that it doesn't really change the equation if you think about operation, especially for mission critical workloads. If you have workloads which most of us, our customers have, where any 1 minute of downtime, you can lose millions of dollars, either in direct revenue or in like second tier customer getting unhappy or brand damage. You don't want to depend on, okay, I have no idea why it's broken. I'm gonna prompt something and hopefully it will figure it out. Like you want to have the right people already on top of it, even before you reach that point one, or if you reach that point to fix it in the most efficient and quickest way. So, and also like it's in many cases for this complex system, it's very hard to, I run this command to fix this issue and to understand upfront what is the impact of every single command. Like if you're running a system that is already out of the optimal condition, in many cases, you can make it worse if you don't understand exactly what is going to happen and how all these things can be interacting. So it's not just like grabbing the logs and understanding, oh, there's an issue here, is how do we fix this one issue in the most safe way. So I don't think that's going to change. So to conclude, so AI is making the open core business easier in a way, but it's not going to lower the price. It's going to just like raise the bar. As it raises the bar, I think for quality-wise around everything in open source, it will also have to raise the bar for vendors to have to up their game and to provide real value. Thank you.
Thank you, Matteo.